The GREGATHON marches on. Your favorite series, as well as mine, continues as Greg IdrA Fields is going to play his opening matches of the 2010 GSL Season 2. And this is interesting because last season we saw our protagonist, Greg IdrA Fields, unfortunately lose in very heartbreaking, narrow fashion. And you see Tasos and Artosis are not even casting this one. Our boy IdrA went down brutally against a Protoss last season who used proxy play to beat him, and I remember one great quote that Artosis said offhandedly that a lot of people try to beat IdrA, and the book on beating IdrA was just you hide stuff around the map on him, because if you just show him what you're doing and play in a normal methodical macro style, he's absolute best at that and will grind you down in those sort of games. We can see he's got his EG jersey on. And whenever I think of IdrA, this is sort of like the IdrA that I think of. A lot of times pro gamers or athletes are sort of like Dragon Ball Z characters in the sense that they have different forms. Like which form of Vegeta is your favorite? Is it Kid Vegeta with the little cape? Is it Crazy Majin Vegeta with the M on his head? Which is your favorite Frieza form? The weird duck form that almost nobody likes? Or the golden form? I love in Super how they had the Jokish Frost character turn into the duck form. But anyway, this is how I think of IdrA. This is my favorite IdrA form. Just joining EG at the beginning of the game's life, and he's really at the peak of his powers at this point. Because Zerg was still really bad, and it was him and Fruit Dealer at the top of the ladder still at this time. But Fruit Dealer was rapidly descending into Demaga mode. The first map is Scrap Station, a horseshoe-shaped, decent map we saw in last season's finals. Then Jungle Basin, a very congested Terran-favored map that Jinro was excellent at. Finally Metalopolis, a map everyone knows. The Vetoes are Steps of War and Delta Quadrant, two insanely Terran-favored Jokish maps. And ChickenCombo gets to Veto Blistering, and then the new map of the season, Shakura's Plateau. So a few things to note here is that Terran had such a good map pool working in their favor where Blistering Sands and Old Shakura's Plateau were the two maps that they didn't want to play. This was Old Shakura's Plateau where IdrA played his Immortal game, which is of course on my channel. I casted that for the 10th anniversary of StarCraft 2. That's what the backdoor rocks that connect the main, you could get tank foot push from. All the quirky little high grounds. The rocks that overlooked your pocket third. It was just an insanely Terran-favored map, so even though we see Shakuras is in this season, it's not the Shakuras you're probably familiar with. It was a decent map. So IdrA will spawn in the top left here, and in the bottom right the Terran player ChickenCombo will spawn. It's interesting these guys are playing again because they played in the first GSL game ever, and that was a game in which ChickenCombo went for some unorthodox, very fun to watch strategy, so even though he didn't really make a name for himself and never became an established winning pro gamer, the fact that he went for such interesting, cool builds should mean that we get to see something a little unorthodox here, hopefully. Truth be told, I haven't previewed these games. They're quite honestly hard to find because of the way that GOM organizes their VODs. That's a big reason why I do the Venomous Classic series, is if all of the Liquipedia links to games are Twitch VODs that have now been removed due to DMCA avarice and other disgusting usury, it means that people who are trying to learn about the game won't be able to, because you can go in. For instance, when I was trying to do an old Venomous Classic over a 2010 finals, I typed it in, the final name and like the matches and all this different crap, and couldn't find it, and eventually had to like go into the old MLG channel and sort by date and like scroll and find it. So it's very arduous to try to find these old games, and most people aren't even going to do anything beyond clicking on a stream or clicking on something that's in the recommended feed. So that's a big reason why I do these old games, is because like there might be one or two people on the entire internet dumb enough to think that I'm like profiting off of this, or there's some market for these games, or I'm like undercutting these people by casting the VODs. No, like no one is seeking out these VODs and being able to find them essentially without an extreme hound dog nature and a sort of neurotic love for the game that's eclipsed by only my love of baseball. By the way, I went to Texas Rangers home opening day, and the new stadium is really neat. I just wish they would close the roof and blast that AC, because in a couple weeks it's going to be unbearable again. IdrA going for hatch first. Even though rush-centric strategies like Barracks Supply Depot were good at this time, 2 racks was very powerful. We still had the full salvage bunkers, so Terrans would roll the dice with half-hearted bunker rushes all the time, because if you did get that bunker up for virtually no risk, it was going to be devastating. So a lot of Zergs would be more willing to go Speedling Expand. Of course, we saw the map pool, it makes a lot of sense. But on this map, Zerg pretty much could say to themselves, alright, we can go hatch first. Now, if you haven't seen the last season of the GSL of the GREGATHON, look in my Venomous Classic playlist. That's where you'll find all these old games that you'll absolutely adore. It's also worth noting that I sort of do transitional games. After IdrA concludes his GSL runs, I'll do a game sort of in between to sort of salt the narrative and give you an idea of what the metagame was like at the time. Sort of chronologically flow with the GREGATHON. For instance, I did last season's GSL finals right before this first episode of the Season 2 first IdrA games, because I wanted you to be able to see what the best Zerg player at the time looked like, and that was Fruit Dealer, aka Cool. If you haven't seen that long series in which I really take an intellectually honest look at how difficult it was for Zerg at the time and how just ahead of his time Fruit Dealer was, go watch those games, because if you're watching these, that's absolutely right up your alley. And it'll be sort of like it's like that thing that you eat with sushi, not wasabi, but the clear stuff that you eat in between different kinds of fish to sort of cleanse your palate. It'd be like a nice little palate cleanse. Looks like ChickenCombo is going to go for a fast drop. Very common on this map. The elephant in the room is the island base that joins the, or I should say is between the 2 bases that are very close to each other. So players love fast drop on this build, on this map, Muta on this map, Banshee on this map, because if you don't break the little Hank Hill narrow urethra rocks down the middle, the rush distance is pretty long. And look at this. ChickenCombo not disappointing as he's going for proxy fusion core, so he might do a freaking BC rush. People, unfortunately, who've only been watching the game for the last year or so are looking at this saying like, okay, like he's doing a BC rush, that's normal. No, like Blizzard had to buff the BC multiple times because for the entirety of the game's life, minus some late game TVP stuff, nobody used the BC and it was regarded as a joke. Certainly no one did these absurd BC rushes that are now sort of counterintuitively relatively common, as the Strop is just going to be crushed by the Gregors here, and he will defend it with ease, not really lose anything. And that was sort of a goofy little preemie drop because he had to rush out a tech lab onto the starport. These are a lot of the builds as far as the order of operations back in this day. And ChickenCombo, granted, is a really creative player, and I love that he's going for BC because no one in this era did this. People would go for air on this map, but it was always Banshee or a drop build like this. But I just love ChickenCombo's creativity. I know it's not like that crisp and it doesn't look that good for the new viewer, but this is some cool shit like proxy BC in a GSL game. Like, I love to see that. It's a shame that he never made it into more GSLs and was never like a Gumiho-like figure that played sort of unorthodox but likable. So there was no tele feature for the BC back at this time, and you still had to research Yamato cannon. And on one base that's really heckin' expensive. As you can see, he's getting another Expo but doesn't have another BC. If you look at his money, he doesn't have anywhere close to enough. He also sacrificed other tech options. He's going pretty much all in on this B-Sizzle. Thankfully for IdrA, the Spire is finishing, and ChickenCombo is going to come back in here with the drop. Now he did repair it a little, so it didn't die, but he didn't repair it up all the way. It's back down into the 20s. And IdrA is trying to defend this BC, but Queens were way worse defensively at this time. But he's going for what equivalent Brood War-wise was 2 hatch Muta. Notice he's skipping like Banelings and Evo Chamber upgrades, and he was saving up just to rush out those Mutas. And we see this definitely had to do with the map. Like I said, very popular for people to go for air-centric builds because of the architecture of this map as the BC is defended. Great defense from IdrA, clean macro. If IdrA had gone for Banes before this, safety Banes, +1 Carapace, a bunch of queens, a faster third. If he would have basically done any other build, he would have been completely rendered ineffectual and unable to stop that. No spores would have been up or been able to finish. He would have just gotten punched in the mouth and devastated. But in the same way that IdrA was so good at squeezing out little advantages, and he breaks into the main here, this is what made IdrA so lethal, is he understood the maps even though they were bad for Zerg. And as we've seen in general with this era, the Zerg has to get a little bit lucky. Now granted, ChickenCombo hit his tech very well, so IdrA would have been caught off guard no matter what, but you just have to consider, like, what if ChickenCombo did a big delayed one base bit by bit style all in, a 1-1-1, IdrA would have been devastated. So as we've seen from many games in this era, IdrA had to guess right, and he did, and took the game down. So great job there. These subsequent games will be coming up soon. As ChickenCombo said, wow, he had mutas out. And let's just sort of roll it back a little and think. So IdrA's going for Spire here. Notice he's rushed out gases 3 and 4, and he hasn't gotten a Bane Nest or Evo Chamber. This is just so important, guys, because at the time in which the BC arrives to his base, if he has done any of these little deviations, any of these little safety maneuvers, he's dead. Like, he's not going to be able to make spores. He's not going to be, the mutas aren't going to be out in time. The mutas literally hatched after the BC had done some pretty good damage. 30 more seconds is all it takes for that game to snowball out of control. So this is a great game by IdrA and a great example of how people really thought this was like an air rushy map. It was very bizarre because really before or since you haven't really seen a map played like this. It's been, even if Blizzard tries to do like a rush map by ground or a map with a big choke or something weird, an island, one of these maps that has an island, they never do a true island map. But no matter what Blizzard like maps with minerals blocking certain areas to access certain other parts of the map, Scrap Station was such a phenomenal map in the game's history because of the interesting way that it played. You actually had all three races going for air-focused strategies. We can see here, even the Zerg player was aware of the fact that he doesn't want to go for his normal quick third base or safe ground style. He's going straight 2-base Muta, which IdrA really wasn't a 2-base Muta Zerg. He was a safe Mutaling third base style Zerg. So this was a very interesting game, I thought, not only because of the historical implications, but Scrap Station is just such a cool map. So if you enjoy this, make sure you check out the playlist, and make sure you watch the Fruit Dealer series that I casted right before this, and hit the like and the bell notification. Peace out.